Hey there, and welcome. You know how so many political fights sound like they're about big ideas and values? Well, a lot of the time, if you scratch just below the surface, they're really about economics. And today, we're going to dive into a perfect example of that. One that, wow, really kicked off a firestorm.
Here it is. This one little sentence, back in 2012, became one of the most explosive quotes of the entire year. It was everywhere, debated endlessly on the news. You had one side just furious, thinking it dismissed all their hard work, and the other side just nodding along like, yep, that's exactly right. So, who was right? Well, instead of getting bogged down in all the political back and forth, we're going to look for the answer using a really powerful economic framework. It's a tool that doesn't just clear up this debate, but kind of explains how our whole world is put together. Okay, let's get into it.
So, first up, let's really break down why that statement was such a lightning rod.
I mean, you can see both sides, can't you? On one hand, you've got the business owner. They're the ones pouring in the sweat, taking huge risks, working those crazy hours to build something from scratch. Of course it feels personal. But then, the other argument is that no business just pops up in a vacuum, right? They need roads to move products, a legal system to enforce contracts, a safe society to operate in, all these things that one person doesn't create on their own. And you know what? Both of those points are totally valid.
To figure out how both can be right at the same time, we need to pull back the curtain and look at two super simple rules economists use to classify, well, basically everything in our society.
The first rule is called rivalry. A good is what we call rival if my using it means you can't use that exact same thing. The go-to example is a sandwich. If I buy a sandwich and I eat it, that's it. It's gone. You can't come along and eat my sandwich. It's a one-and-done deal. And the second rule is excludability. This one's pretty straightforward. A good is excludable if you can stop people from using it, usually because they didn't pay. Think about a movie theater or a theme park. They've got a person at the gate saying, hey, no ticket, you're not getting in. You are actively excluded. Now here's the cool part. These two rules, rivalry and excludability, that's all we need. That's the entire key to unlocking our economic map. All right, now for the big reveal. When we put these two simple rules together on a grid, we can sort pretty much everything we buy, use, or interact with into four clean, distinct categories. And there it is. Isn't that neat? It takes all the messy complexity of our economy and just organizes it. We've got rival and non-rival across the top, and excludable and non-excludable down the side. And that gives us our four boxes: private goods, public goods, club goods, and common resources. Let's just walk through each one really quick. First up, private goods. These are both excludable and rival. Take your car. It's excludable because you had to buy it to get the keys. And it's rival. If you're driving it to work, nobody else can be driving that same exact car at that same exact time. Super simple. Most of the stuff you own, your clothes, your laptop, the food in your fridge, it all lives here. Okay, now let's jump to the polar opposite, public goods. These guys are non-excludable and non-rival. Think about something like national defense. You can't really be excluded from its protection, and the fact that you're safe doesn't make anyone else less safe. Same goes for streetlights and, yep, you guessed it, public roads. The very thing at the center of our whole puzzle. So here's the crucial difference. The free market is amazing at pumping out private goods, but it kind of fails when it comes to public goods. Why? Well, think about it. If you can't stop people from using something, how in the world are you going to get them to pay for it? And this leads to a really famous problem in economics. It's called the free rider problem. Imagine a private company decided to install streetlights on your block. Then they came knocking on your door asking for a monthly fee. You might just say, nah, I'm good, knowing you'll still get the light from your neighbors who do pay. See the problem? If everyone thinks like that, nobody pays and the company goes out of business. That's exactly why governments usually step in to provide public goods and pay for them with our taxes. Okay, two more boxes to fill in. We've got club goods. These are excludable but non-rival. Think about your Netflix subscription or a gym membership. You gotta pay to get in the door, so it's definitely excludable. But you binge watching a show doesn't stop millions of other people from watching the very same show. Your use doesn't get in the way of theirs. And that brings us to our last category, common resources. Now, these are non-excludable, but they are absolutely rival. The classic example is fish in the ocean. It's really hard to stop anyone from going out there and fishing. But, and this is a big but, every single fish that one boat catches is a fish that no other boat can catch. That resource is limited. And this specific combination creates a massive problem. Because nobody really owns the resource, everyone has an incentive to just grab as much as they can as fast as they can before the next person does. This leads to overuse and, sometimes, the total collapse of the resource. It's a phenomenon famously known as the tragedy of the commons. So, you can see how this simple little grid is way more than just a sorting tool. It actually helps us understand the biggest, most fundamental choices that every single society has to make. Yeah, this grid isn't just some boring academic exercise. How a country decides to create, manage, and pay for these 4 different types of goods is really just how it answers the 3 most basic questions in all of economics. First, what are we even going to make? More private goods like cars or more public goods like trains? Second, how are we going to make it? Should something like healthcare be a private good sold for a profit, or should it be a public good provided by the government? And finally, for whom? Who gets to benefit? The answers to these questions really define what a society values.
Okay, so let's tie this all together. Let's go back to that really controversial quote from the beginning and see what this economic compass tells us. And this, right here, is the answer. That whole "you didn't build that firestorm" was never really about individual effort versus some faceless group. It was an economic debate all along. It's about the vital partnership between private goods, the business, the risk, the hard work, and the public goods, the roads, the schools, the stable society that allow that business to even exist, let alone succeed. You simply can't have one without the other.
So, in the end, economics shows us that both sides of that argument were right, in a way. Our world is and will always be a blend of these 4 types of goods. And that reveals that the real question, the much harder and more important question, isn't who built it. It's what's the right mix of all 4 to build the kind of society we all want to live in. And finding that balance, well, that's the ongoing challenge for all of us. Thanks for watching.